Hi, fifth grade. All right, we're going to continue with Crash. We have the first 4 chapters. We left off when Penn was trying to get John to come to his house. And John said, well, you're going to have to earn it. And they kind of tried to have a water gun fight, but Penn wouldn't fight back because he's a Quaker and he doesn't play with guns and he didn't believe in that, which totally blew Crash's mind. So then they wrestled, they threw stones at the poles, the telephone pole, to see who could hit it the most, and they finally decided to have a race. And although Crash won, Penn was really, really close, and that kind of freaked John out a little bit. But he said he would still go to Penn's house. So we're on chapter 5, and we'll see if he goes to his house, and if he does, what happens. My mother didn't like the peel job on the tree, so I was grounded for 3 days. My sister collected the scraps of bark and got some Elmer's glue and pasted them back onto the tree trunk like a jigsaw puzzle. When I knocked on the door of the garage house, I could hear him squealing, "He's here!" and running. The door flew open. He looked at me like he hadn't seen me in years. "Hi, John. Come on in." "It's Crash," I told him. He didn't answer, just closed the door behind me. The white-haired man and the lady showed up. The kid stood between us. He straightened up, put on his serious, grown-up face, and said, "John, I would like you to meet my mother and father, Mr. Raymond A. Webb and Mrs. Glenda W. Webb. Mother, father, this is my best friend, John Patrick Hogan." They got all smiley and stuck out their hands to shake it and said in a duet, "Nice to meet you, John." "Call me Crash," I said. The mother just stood there grinning. The father nodded. "Crash it is." I crashed into my cousin with my football helmet and knocked her all the way out into the snow. He nodded some more. He whistled. "Wow, I see." The mother spoke up. "Penn, why don't you take John, Crash, to your room for a few minutes till dinner is ready? Every other house I ever saw, you go upstairs to a bedroom. Here, you just went a couple of steps from the front room, and bam, you were there." "Didn't you ever live in a 2-story house?" I asked him. He thought about it. "In North Dakota, we lived on the 2nd floor of a house, but someone else lived on the 1st floor." I shook my head. Weird. His room was weird, too. "Where are your toys?" I said. He dove under his bed and pulled something out. "Here." "What is it?" "A Conestoga wagon. It's just like the one my great-great-great-grandfather Webb went out to North Dakota in. My great-grandfather made it for me. He said there is a place in North Dakota where you can still see the ruts in the ground from all the wagon trains." It was wood, not even painted, old-looking, about ready for the junk heap. He pulled it across the floor. "It wobbles," I said. He just kept grinning at it, like it was going to stand on its hind legs and bark. I had been thinking about how some kids call their grandfathers Pop Pop, so I said, what do you call him? Pop Pop Pop?" I was too busy laughing at myself to hear his answer. I looked around. "So, where's the rest?" Now he was pulling the wagon in circles. "The rest of what?" "Your toys." He pointed to the wagon. "That's it." "I mean, the rest." I looked under his bed. I nosed into this closet. Dump trucks, fire engines, cars, cranes, Steve shovels, Batman, Spider-Man. "Wait," he squawked. He ran to the bookcase filled with books and grabbed an old pretzel tin. He pried off the lid. "It's not a toy, I guess, but it's still pretty neat." I looked. "Dirt?" "It's dried mud from the Missouri River. There's an old legend." Okay, I want you to remember this old legend. If you scoop some up from the bottom of the river and you wait 50 years, the mud can heal whatever's wrong with you. All you have to do is add water and make it mud again and put it where it hurts, and the hurt goes away. I snorted. "You believe that?" He shrugged. "Maybe. Anyway, my great-grandfather got this mud from the bottom of the river 64 years ago. Next to my Conestoga wagon, it's the best thing I have." He closed the tin and put it back on the shelf. Mud. I shook my head and went to the window. How pitiful could you get? He had only one toy to his name, and what was worse, the dumb pork roll didn't even know how bad off he was. It was depressing to be in that room, so I was glad when his mother called, "Boys, dinner, come and get it." So you can see these two kids were raised very differently. Penn is more conservative family, only child, where Crash has a sister. They live in a 2-story house. And you're going to see there's lots more differences with the kids. Penn's parents both work from home. One's an artist. Can't remember what he said his mom does. I think makes things as well. And Crash was saying how his dad's starting his own business, works 70 hours a week. His mom works and goes to school. So very different lifestyles. And it's just going to keep going with that. Chapter 6. At first I thought they were hamburgers, but the color wasn't right. Fish cakes? I took a bite. Big mistake. Both parents were looking at me. The mother said, "Penn, didn't you tell your friend?" Webb gawked at his mother. His eyes bulged. A pained look came over his face. Oops, I think I forgot. Forgot what? I said. You didn't really forget, did you, son? The father said. Webb looked sheepish. I guess not. I guessed I was getting a little tired of all this claptrap. I aimed myself straight at Webb. What am I supposed to know? Webb's eyes shifted to me. I was supposed to tell you that we're vegetarians. I had never heard that word before. What's that? I said. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, are these people ninja tomatoes or something? We don't eat meat, Webb said. And you didn't tell him, said his father, because you were afraid if you did, he might not come over for dinner. Webb nodded. His face went pale. I was still wondering if I heard him right. You mean you don't eat hot dogs? All three said no. Hamburgers? No. Chicken? Turkey? Steaks? The father propped his elbows on the table, clamped his hands together, smiled. Crash, I guess we just feel that animals are God's creatures and that it's not for us to consume them. I still had the first bite in my mouth. I figured whatever it wasn't one of God's creatures. I pointed to my plate. So what's that? The mother chirped, Oat burger. All cheery. Look, said Webb. He poured maple syrup on it. They're great this way. The father chuckled. I'll relieve the boy's misery. He left the table and came back with the trash basket. He held it at my side. Drop her in here, Crash. I leaned over, opened my mouth, and let the oat burger fall into the basket. He took it away. The other stuff on my plate were candied sweet potatoes, string beans, and something I didn't recognize, little brown clumps. Mrs. Webb saw me looking. The breaded mushrooms. Try one. I tried one. It was delicious. What do you think? She said. It's okay. Webb piped. John has a great-great-grandfather, and he's 115 years old. 4 grown-up eyeballs landed on me. I had to think quick. And I do dive bombing too, I said. Want to see me? I didn't wait for an answer. I jumped from the table and went behind their sofa. I dived over the back of it, landed on my head and hands on the cushion, pushed off, swung my feet around, and landed on the floor. I threw up my arms. Told ya. They clapped. He went back to eating. I stuck with the sweet potatoes and mushrooms. Webb kept pushing the syrup over and telling me what I was missing by not eating the oat burgers. To shut him up, I said, Did you know your son was a Quaker? The parents looked at each other, at the kid, at me, and broke out laughing. Yes, said his father, we do know that. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Webb and I happen to be Quakers too. I said, Oh, does that mean you don't believe in war either? I'm afraid so, he said. That's too bad, I told him. Your kid's missing out on a lot of great stuff, especially at Christmas. About half my presents are usually war things. Last year I got a G.I. Joe action figure, and oh man, I was getting into it now. I just remembered my bazooka. It's a combination machine gun and bazooka. First, you wipe out all the infantry with the machine gun, then you go after the tanks. It has an armor-piercing shell. Sets the tanks on fire, roasts the guys inside like they're marshmallows. I sat back and let that all sink in. Let them see what they were really missing. After a while, the father smiled and said, I see. Everybody just chewed for a minute. I have a grandfather, though. His name is Scooter, I said. Now that's something, said the mother. Yeah, I popped another mushroom. So I said, Are you poor? The parents started laughing again. I never knew I could be so funny. I'm beginning to see why they call you Crash, said the father, whatever that meant. He went on, To answer your question, no, I wouldn't say we're poor. Would you? Yeah, looks like it to me, I said. Your kid hardly has any toys, and you only have one floor on your house. I decided to be nice and tell them that it didn't look like a garage. More smiles. No, said the father, we're not poor at all. In fact, I'd say we were kind of rich in many ways. Ha, could have fooled me. Maybe they have a limo out back or something, I thought. I ate a few more bread and mushrooms. I looked around the room. I got up. Something had been bugging me from the start, and now I knew what it was. I checked out the kitchen. I took another look in the kids' room. I checked out every room in the place. I came back to the table. They were all staring at me. I stared back. Where's the TV? We don't have a TV. The words came from the kid. I stared at him. Huh? He said it again. We don't have TV. You're tricking me. He wagged his head, eyes all wide. No, really. What do you do on Saturday morning? I play, I read, and we go places, the father chimed in. We're looking forward to visiting places around here, said the mother. This is all new to us Flickertails. Crash, the father spoke. We're thinking about driving to Amish country this Saturday. I understand it's not too far from here. Would you like to come along with us? Webb squawked. Yeah! I'll be watching cartoons, I said. We could wait till they're over. Nah, my dad's taking me to the Phillies game. He backed off. Well, then maybe some other time. Maybe never, I thought. Dessert was gingerbread squares with warm lemon sauce. I ate 6 of them and got out of there. All right. I'm going to read one more chapter just to give you a little taste of what Crash's life is like. Chapter 7. That night I asked my mother how to spell the words and left a note on my door asking my father to wake me up before he went to bed. I heard his voice saying, "What's up, Chief?" before I knew he was in the room. I sat up. Dad, can we go to the Phillies game on Saturday? The short silence after my question gave me the answer. It was too dark to see his face, but I knew what it would look like. A kind of sad, wincy expression. There would be one of 3 reasons. Number 1, he was just starting up his own business and he had to work 70 hours a week just to get it off the ground. Or number 2, he and Mom already had something to do that night. Or number 3, he was so dead tired from the 70-hour week that he didn't even have the strength to blow his nose, much less leave the house. It was reason number 1. Sorry, Crashmeister, he said, laying me back down. We'll get down to the ballpark before the season's over. Night now. Night, Dad. Saturday morning, as usual, I watched the cartoons. Every once in a while, I looked out the window down the street. I was smack dab in the middle of Bugs Bunny when I saw them go by. It wasn't a limo or half a limo. It was some heap of junk, a dorkmobile, rich my buns. That afternoon, I was turning the channels. I came across the Phillies game. I snapped it off. I went to the refrigerator. The night before, we'd had spaghetti and meatballs. I got a meatball, dumped it into a plastic bag, and ran down the street. I dumped it out of the bag and left it there, right in the middle of their front steps. Okay, so I'm going to let you think about that a little bit. So we can see that Penn doesn't really feel that he is poor because there's different meanings for that. So to Crash, they're very much poor. They don't have toys. They live in a little house. There's no TV. They're vegetarians. He's thinking, whoa. But Penn and his family don't feel that way because they spend a lot of time together. They go on trips together. They do a lot with family. And Crash, his parents are working all the time and doing things, and he's happy, and that's the way his life is. And he's got a big house, and he's got a lot of nice things, and 2 totally different ways of life. Neither wrong, but we're going to see it's just these 2 kids kind of trying to be friends, trying to figure each other out, and that's kind of the premise of the story. So you got to remember still, they're only 6 years old, and so now Crash, probably mad that his dad didn't take him to the Phillies game, and he told them that he would, so that didn't happen, so he took a meatball, and he meatballed them, put that on their front porch step, and we'll see what happens with that. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.